everybody. Welcome back to my channel, From Shattered to Whole. I'm Andrea, and I am very excited to have a author on the channel today. She is a children's author, so we will be meeting her in a moment. So stick around. Once you give it all to God and you say, you know what, I'm done. I'm done. I give you my life. That's when things really start to change. No, we don't all know what our calling is. We're all different, and there's something different He wants us to do, each of us. His plans for your life are so much better than what you think you can do with your life.
Exactly.
Hi, Andrea. It's so nice to have you on my channel. Thank you so much for, coming here and being willing to share your testimony. I know you're an author of a children's book, Hope is a Blanket.
Yes, yep, that's it. I have a copy of it right here. My cute
Awesome,
little
you guys.
piece.
We are going to link that in the description below, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But what I'm really excited about is to hear your testimony. And I want to ask you, what was one of the hardest seasons that you've gone through in your life? And it can be a couple, and tell me, how did God pull you through?
Yeah. Yeah, so I am really fortunate. I grew up in a really lovely household. I have great parents. I have a brother and a sister. I had godly grandparents, just generations of great people around me, great community growing up as well. And I just was really fortunate not to go through a lot of hard things. So, like, when people talk about grief and loss, I'm like, no, that's not my bag. I have a very sunshiny, happy life. So that's not for me. But when I was 37, so my husband and I already had a son who's 6 years old. We became pregnant with our second son. And unfortunately, we miscarried at 16 weeks. And everything had been looking good up until that point. And it just was a really devastating moment, not just for us, but also for our son, and having to explain to our son that he wasn't going to be a big brother. So I had never gone through something that hard in my life. And actually just going through the physical miscarriage process, it happened in the middle of the night around like 2 or 3 a.m. So our son was asleep, and I woke up and knew something was wrong. I knew I had to get to the hospital, but because we had our son sleeping at home and didn't have family right close by who could come stay with him, I had to drive myself to the hospital, which thankfully we live by a hospital, so it wasn't too far. But for some reason, the only words that I could utter as I was driving to the hospital was just, God, you are good. God, you are good. God, you are good. And the next couple hours were really sad and hard and painful. But what I went on this journey, it happened in December. It was right before the holidays. So it was really almost a blessing, because we ended up being around family a lot. And it was just kind of a quiet time where there wasn't a whole lot going on for work or anything. And I could just kind of be in that space. But what I really set out to do was to believe those words that I was praying, that, like, if I said, God, you are good, do I actually believe you're good? And how are you good in the midst of something so tragic and terrible? So as we headed into the new year, my best friend and I have a tradition of having a word of the year. And so I chose hope as my word of the year. I also went back to therapy and started getting grief counseling. And I just really felt like God was calling me to explore the word hope and really understand the true meaning of that. And biblically, how hope was used in the Bible and shows up in the Bible, which the first showing is in is Ruth, by the way, fun fact. So great story there if you've never read that story in the Bible. But I learned is that just like a pregnancy where you're expecting something good on the other side, hope is that same thing. It's expecting something good on the other side of something. And so it was a hard time, but it was a really big growth season where God just continued to show up for me tangibly and spiritually in so many huge ways. And one of the best products of that was writing my book, Hope is a Blanket, and just trying to write in a very basic way a book that could help kids and families process grief and loss. So kind of I took the experience I had of processing my grief and loss and tried to put it into storybook fashion where families could also benefit from my journey and hopefully use it to help process theirs as well.
Do you feel like God was leading you to write the book?
I do. I wanted to write a book for many years. It was on my heart. I just never felt like I had the right topic, I guess. And so I had all these fun, playful ideas, and I'm like, oh, that's cute. Is it compelling? Does it matter? Do I have the authority to talk about that topic? And when this happened to me, I just felt like, yes, this is something I can write about. And the book is not a sad book. It's just a book about again, looking for hope and understanding, that we all go through hard things. It doesn't have to be a miscarriage. It could be that your pet died. It could be that your best friend moved away, or that your family moved and you're changing schools and you're just going through something that's hard. It's okay to grieve those things that are hard in life. And I just felt that that was something meaningful and worth putting down on paper.
It's difficult, anytime we have to deal with loss or grief, and everybody just handles it differently, and
Sure.
it's good that you made a children's book about that, because how children even process grief is totally different than how we do. And so I
Sure.
can't imagine, how it must have been. The fact that you stayed so positive during that, and you could have just wallowed, you know
Yeah.
in your sadness and misery, and it happens to a lot of people. We just get stuck in that place, and we want to just be in that, and then we end up getting depressed, and there's a lot of things that can happen.
Yes, for
And the
sure.
fact that you praised him even in the bad, that's what we're supposed to do. And
Yeah.
one of my favorite scriptures is, and we know in all things that he works
Mhm.
all things together for the good for those that are called according to his purpose. And so God works all things together
Yes.
for his good. And so even
Yes.
though that was traumatic and it was a loss, you wrote a book. So
Yeah.
he took your brokenness
Yes.
and made it into something so beautiful.
He did, and I think, a conversation I had with a friend along that journey was just that. I mean, I never felt for 1 second that God did it on purpose, or that He put that in my path on purpose. But I do think there's a beauty in surrendering to God all the things that are in front of you and that are going on with you, and allowing Him to give it meaning or give it purpose or use it for His glory. And it's really such a neat experience to be part of something like that, even though you never ask for it. Like, being in the miscarriage club is something I never really wanted, but I also had the courage to talk about it and just be open about it. Because a lot of times when people would see our family, like, oh, you only have one child. And there's a lot of times where just be like, yes, this is my son, and just be able to own that with confidence. But then at the same time, it's like, well, we were pregnant with another, but we had a miscarriage. And you wouldn't believe how many people are like, oh, we did too. I'm so sorry you went through that. And how it just opened a door and made you realize that that community is a lot larger than you may actually realize. So it really, God allowed it to be a way to just connect and build community through that
Right.
hardship.
Because, something, you going through that helps somebody else that might be, in a really like terrible place.
Absolutely.
They
And
could
a
be
good,
just
yeah,
hopeless and just so sad and depressed, can't get out of bed.
yeah, yeah.
I've known many people, well, not many, but like a few people that actually it was so sad. They lost one of their children, and he was a young age. He was 7, and
Okay.
it destroyed their marriage.
Yes. Yes. And that my husband and I do talk about that every once in a while, like that could have been the end of us. We had been married for, oh goodness, I think 13 or 14 years at that point. And so again, we're several years on the other side of that. And it was hard, because we processed our grief differently. But there's something I've always prayed during my marriage, especially during seasons where had to make a big decision and we weren't quite sure what to do. I always prayed for like-mindedness. And I always felt like God has been faithful in showing up in that way. And so even though my husband and I did process grief differently, we were able to just like get in bed every night. And instead of like rolling away and wanting to either cry or just go to sleep, we would just turn towards each other and just have a little bit of a conversation at night, just to check in, see how each other was doing. Because obviously, we both have full-time jobs and we're still parenting our son. And so trying to just get through that. But that act of, I think, turning in, just that little small act at the end of every day for several weeks on end, was what we needed to just have a pulse and to draw closer to each other versus away.
Do you have anything that you would say to someone that is going, because you know what it feels like, and God showed up for you, he will show up for them too.
Sure. It's so hard because I just respect everybody's individual journey and how they process that. I guess I just try to be an active listener and just meet people where they're at and just let them talk and have that space and be able to just empathize. Because I actually did have a good friend who went through a miscarriage with twins actually not long after we miscarried. And she had a prior miscarriage. She does have 3 girls already, but it was just devastating for her. And so she was really there for me when I went through mine. And it was just so unexpected for her to go through hers. And so honestly, I felt like God gave us each other as friends during this season. And now there's this amazing group of women that some, friends of mine at church have kind of started a mom's group or a women's group that has really thrived. And we've all kind of met in this awesome space where everybody's in the thick of it in some shape or form. Sure, not everybody's going through a miscarriage or a loss, but a lot of people have little kids or are, we have other families that are doing foster care. We just got approved as foster resource parents. That was another beautiful thing that came out of the whole process, is that we decided to pursue having, adding children to our home, but through the foster system. And so it's just neat because God has knit together this whole community around just hard things. It's just parenting is hard, loss is hard, all these things are hard. But if we can just meet each other and say, hey, I have hard stuff and I have baggage and so do I, but we can just say, let's do this thing called life together. It's a hot mess sometimes, but God has just showed up in a lot of neat ways and knit together a really strong, solid community that I'm so excited to welcome, foster children into, because they will just be so seen and so loved in this community. And it's a huge blessing.
That is incredible that you're doing that. There are so many kids that need homes, and
Yes.
it's a blessing that you can do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But God blesses in other ways. Like what He
Yeah.
always blesses you with more. If He takes something away, it's
Yes.
because He's giving you something better. He's giving you
Yes.
more, and
Yes.
there's reason behind everything.
Yes, I believe that wholeheartedly. And the need for foster parents is huge. I could talk about that on a podcast or a video all day, but just quick anecdotal. We were at we had the good fortune of winning Savannah Bananas tickets. So we got to go to their baseball game. It was in Philadelphia recently. And Savannah Bananas, the owner, he and his wife actually foster adopted girls. They were siblings and they're now permanently part of their family. And so out of his experience and just, again, learning about the process, has started a nonprofit organization. And they really do highlight the need for foster right in the middle of these fun family baseball games. And basically, the park that we were at, Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia, holds, I think, about 45,000. And they're like, the amount of kids in foster care right now in the US is this stadium times like 10. And just thinking about this packed, sold out stadium, but there are 10 of these filled with children just waiting for homes. It's like, it's so compelling. And not everybody is called to physically welcome them into their home, but it's that need. And I've heard this from lots of speakers lately, that even if not everybody can foster, we can all do something to support the foster system, whether it's donate to a nonprofit, whether it's be part of a care community for a foster family, or just do something to love and help solve this problem in society. It's just wild to me that there's all these kids that just want to be in loving homes and they're sitting waiting. So we're trying to make a small dent in the system if we can.
You're doing it. And, I'm interested in that. So
yeah,
we'll talk afterwards.
Yes, I'm here for that conversation. Sure.
Anything, that I can do to help. It is sad that it's kind of overwhelming that there is that many,
Yes.
It's very real. But I am so grateful that you, shared your testimony.
Yes.
I know it will lift somebody out there that, that is going through something traumatic like this. Like you said, any type of loss, anything grieving, that, the hope that we have.
Yes.
And
yes and amen.
Jesus, He is our rock. That's the only way, like, I can get through every day.
Yes. Yeah. I mean,
good.
again, and not to, the book talks about that too. It just talks about how hope really can be, it's a soft place to land, but it's also like a fortress. And it just reminds you that, like, God really is our hope. I mean, that's ultimately, like, even though the book that I wrote is not overtly Christian, I wanted it to be a light in a dark space, but I didn't want anybody to feel that, like, if they're not a Christian, that this book wasn't for them. But yeah, I want people to remember that, like, God is our hope at the end of every day. And there's nothing that you can go through, that you can never run too far from God, that He can't pull you back in. And there's nothing that you're going through that He can't reach down into that situation and be there with you and bring you out on the other side of that.
Right? He's always with us. He will never leave us nor forsake us.
No.
Yeah. And I lean on that scripture every day.
Yes.
Every day I do. Hold up your book one more time for us. So hope is a blanket. And where can we find your book?
Sure. So it's online wherever books are sold. So Amazon is a popular one, but it's also Barnes and Noble. And actually, I love supporting local as much as I can, because I'm a business owner, a small business owner as well. So you can actually order it through a lot of independent bookstores, because it does have, it is published officially with an ISBN. So you can actually order it through your local bookstore as well. They very likely don't have it on shelves, but they can order it and have it in. So if it's not a time sensitive thing and you can be patient and not require 2-day shipping through Prime, it will get there. And it's a great way to support local as well. So
that is great. And I'm also going to put in the Amazon link, everybody, down below, so you can get her book. And I thank you so much, Andrea, for, coming on my show, sharing your testimony. It is inspiring and encouraging, and it will help someone.
Thanks for
Thank you
having me.
so much. And thank you guys. We'll see you next time. Bye. God bless you.